You're listening to Behind the Mic with AudioFile magazine. I'm Joe Reed. Alan Minskoff, a contributor to AudioFile, is with me, and he's with me for the next 2 days. Hello, Alan. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So, what are we talking about?
Today, we are talking about the Sirens Call by MSNBC personality Chris Hayes. And this has gotten a lot of attention. It was on the cover of the New York Times Sunday magazine, and for good reason. It's the Sirens Call, and the subtitle is How Attention Became the World's Most Endangered Resource. And that's his subject, is attention as opposed to information overload. That information is everywhere. Attention is different. And it's easy to grab it, but it's hard to hold it. And so he teaches us a lot about attention, and he's done an enormous amount of work. What I loved is he's a good definer of stuff. He says that attention really occurs in three ways. There's voluntary attention when you're really listening to them. There's involuntary attention when a motorcycle goes by, and there's social attention is what we give to each other. And that's sort of the three pillars of attention that we learn about in this text.
And what about social media attention? Is that a fourth pillar?
Absolutely. No, that's part of the social
Okay.
attention. Social media is talked about a great deal in this book. But what I was most impressed by, I was impressed by several things, but I was very impressed by some sad facts. Anxiety is on the rise, depression and suicide are up, and here's the social media dark side. And all are implicated by the social distancing that life in this moment where we're in front of phones all the time. And you see it in young people. It is a complex moment to be going up. You very often, I'm sure you've seen it yourself, you walk into a restaurant and there are six people looking at their phones rather than talking to each other.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting because in my house, I have no devices in my kitchen rule.
This is a good idea.
When the godchildren are over, they know if they wanna be with us, they can't sit there and be on their phone while I'm talking to their parents. They put the phone down or they just go away. They can make the call.
Well, I think we're all living with this moment.
Yeah, I think we are too, and I'm shocked at how many parents allow their kids to be on the phones while they eat. I'm just saying.
Let's talk about his narration for just a moment. I mean, he's a television personality. So he, of course, knows how to use language, but he does an interesting thing because he has a lot of material that he quotes. So, of course, the Sirens Call comes from Odysseus being strapped to the mast so that he will not respond to the sirens. And of course, he has his men on the boat, ears are covered. And the Sirens Call today is, of course, tech. And what he's very good on is differentiating the generations. And he kind of thinks that we're living in an age of attention deficit rather than, rather than the good things that come out of tech. There's also this attention deficit. What he does very well, and that actually I was talking about with my students yesterday, is that there are some things happening in society that are counterintuitive. For example, there are young people buying vinyl. And there are, at my own college, they've gone from an online paper to a print paper because there's something powerful about the tangible. And so he does bring up some things which are not, in the long line of things to be depressed about. What we talked about earlier, the rise of more suicide and depression and anxiety. But there are these little glimmers. Vinyl is one of them. The urge for something tangible, because people spend 15 seconds online looking at a headline and they move on to the next.
Right.
So it is something that I think that he gives us this other little bit of positivity help me.
Oh, thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. So is he saying things that we don't know, or is he saying it differently?
He talks about the people, and of course he's a man of interest in politics. He talks about people who need so much attention. And you could argue that some of our leading lights in politics right now really need a lot of attention in business and in politics, without naming names, but
We can name them.
well, I would say that he does name them. He says the president is a person who needs an enormous amount of attention, and his bro, Elon Musk, is another who needs an enormous amount of
Yeah.
attention.
Can we hear a little bit of it now?
Yes, and here's where he talks about the sirens of lore.
This is The Sirens Call: How Attention Became the World's Most Endangered Resource, written and read by Chris Hayes.
The sirens of lore and the sirens of the urban streetscape both compel our attention against our will. And that experience, Having our mind captured by that intrusive whale is now our permanent state, our lot in life. We are never free of the siren's call. Attention is the substance of life. Every moment we are awake, we are paying attention to something, whether through our affirmative choice or because something or someone has compelled it. Ultimately, these instants of attention accrue into a life.
I mean, you're right, Alan. He's on television. He knows how to present material. He does it very well. But it's what a provocative statement that attention is the substance of life. I'm not sure I agree with that. I think it's time, but that's a quibble. I think attention is the window we see life through, perhaps.
I think you're both right. I think both things can be true simultaneously. I think that
Yeah, I
we
think
do
that's
live in
right.
this information overload moment,
No question.
and attention is precious. There's so much to see and to learn. And just when you think you have the 5 best sites to get your news from or to get the interpretation of your news from, all of a sudden you say, oh, but I missed this, because there's so much out there. And there's a lot out there that is not worth your attention.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree. Yeah, so this seems like a really important book.
It's of the moment for sure.
And that is The Siren's Call: How Attention Became the World's Most Endangered Resource, written and read by Chris Hayes. Alan, thank you so much, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
And I look forward to it.
And I just want to let listeners know that Friday we have a special edition of Behind the Mic. We have an interview that Michelle Cobb did with Julia Whalen, who won an Audio Award for Best Fiction at the recent Audio Awards. So you don't want to miss that. That's this Friday, a special edition of Behind the Mic. Dreamscape is the publisher of today's episode of Behind the Mic. Dreamscape publishes audiobooks from authors like Frida McFadden, Kirsten Proby, and Stasia Stark. Explore their full catalog at dreamscapepublishing.com. And if you like Behind the Mic, leave us a rating. And don't forget to follow us on the platform of your choice. I'm Jo Reed. I'll talk to you tomorrow.